Okay, here we go again, guys. Are you ready? I'm gonna do it.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna hit the button. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time to be here once again. Last week we had ourselves a special episode of things being put together. I do want to start by saying sorry for the bad audio quality on the video. That was nobody's microphone or no one's fault. That was just completely my bad on my end for mixing the audio in the recording as well as in the edit. So didn't really want to waste the conversation, put it up as is, wasn't proud of it, but hey, it's there. And this week, definitely keeping all of that in mind, it's going to be a much better experience. So thank you everyone for taking the time to be here, and hopefully you guys enjoy the episode today. So joining us today, we've got Mr. Anfield in the room, we've got Choice with us, and we've got Mr. Morrolan. Good to see you, and thanks all of you guys for being here. Namiko wasn't able to be here, had to take a step out. I haven't heard from Vert, but maybe he'll pop in through the middle of this. So last week we did talk about group content, what activities could be improved, including within the guild content. We also mentioned ideas and potential brainstorming thoughts for PvP modes and other things where we think could be an additional beneficial feature for players in the game. And this week we're going to be talking about some more of those PvP topics, a little bit more specifically, group content that currently exists, and then potentially delving into some more topics later on, but I don't know if our time length is going to reach that, so I will bring that up later. It'll probably be related for next week's podcast, but we'll see where we get for today with these this talkative bunch here. If you guys want to take a look and check out anybody who's in this room, make sure you do check out the description down below in the video. Links will be provided for everybody, and I would appreciate if you guys could do me a rock solid and go over and give our friends here a follow if you're not familiar with these names. So guys, what's up? How's it going? How's the week of BDO been so far? What are you guys working on? Any tales to tell while we're on the record now?
It's a good week, Fake. Good week. I've just been taking advantage of that Altar Blood event that's been happening, and I'm also working on a little bit of life skill and stuff now that Mastery's out. So overall,
you've
it's
been
nice
actively grinding Altar Blood.
Yes, sirree. I have. Yeah, that's kind of been my main source of grinding, just because I'm kind of going after Kaffir stones right now, and it's got a pretty favorable drop right there. So
oh, that's nice. What's the silver per hour, would you say? Have you done any sort of mathematics based on your experience so far?
Like with a really high-end party, it's going to be about 80 to 100 mil per hour.
Nice.
And that is just base amount of money. And then if you have like rare drops, like try bosses, try boss boxes, tet boss, and then maybe a pen, overall my long-term average is about 135 mil an hour. Nice. Which is about what I would make at Histria without a loot scroll. So it's been pretty competitive.
So you get to hang out with some people and whatnot. And you get to potentially get some good loot. I did beat all 10 of the rounds with Vert and a Moo, and I think it was Vert and I both ended up getting tri blue boxes, and we got Triacoom gear, which I then went for Tetacoom on a 1-stack. It didn't go. But I went for it. Have you gotten any enhanced boss or box drops yourself?
Yeah, so I've gotten like a large number of tries, and then the occasional tet, and then I've gotten 2 Pen Lemuria pieces overall. Whoa. Which is pretty solid. Yeah, 2? Like not many people get pen bot. Yeah, so the first one. Well, this one was actually happening before the event, the Pen Lemuria that I got, and then during this event I got one as well. So like,
you made it sound like it was this event, but still, even just to get 2 in general, that's how much silver is that currently for Pen Lemuria for the second one you sold?
I was able to. It was really early on, and so I was able to sell it full price, 1.55 bill.
Who's complaining?
How much do those devour for?
Isn't it 75 stack? I'm not sure.
I think so. Okay. I think it's around 80.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think it's actually around 80.
That would be the way to go with some of the green pens, right? You just eat them up.
I don't know if I do that, man. I mean, pen heave. Everyone wants that. That's the flavor of the week on the
Definitely not with Heave, but I mean, if you get like, can't you get like Pantaratus and stuff from those boxes? It's anything.
Oh, I wouldn't know, honestly. I think so. Wouldn't surprise me. Anfield, have you
Do you
been
know,
doing
Choice?
much?
Have you gotten any green boxes?
I've got none.
Yeah, I've gotten quite a few green boxes. Yeah, green boxes. Usually just helmets, to be honest. I don't think I've ever gotten anything other than helmets.
Oh, interesting.
Am I
So,
playing the wrong server or something?
huh?
You guys getting all this stuff like
Oh,
okay. I got 2 tri-blue. That's what I got. Yay.
so Altar of Blood recently had some changes implemented to make it easier. They increased the drop rates. They increased the potential earnings that you've made. Clearly, you guys have been trying this since this released. My overall question to you guys is: with the event changes, has it made it more fun for you?
Honestly, I don't know if it's well. I mean, a challenge is fun, right? Challenging is fun. I think that what made it more fun is just the fact that you're actually feeling like you're getting something out of doing it. And there's that, hype moment where you get that boss box or you get that, Tet box. Like you have the moments where you can sort of compare it to grinding, but sort of on like a larger scale. It's like Star's End. You could go dry for an hour, dry for 2 hours, 3 hours, and then all of a sudden you get that earring drop and it's like, hell yeah, that was all worth it. And so it kind of added that sort of factor for it to me, and that's what I enjoy about it. And I also think the difficulty personally is future proofing for further stages. Now, like I've duoed a stage 10 before and got to the boss. We failed the boss, but it's still possible to duo a wave 10 with like really high geared players. And so I feel like in the future they're able to add more rounds, whereas the previous wave 10 they kind of pretty much hard capped themselves at only having 10 waves, since it was very punishing and you needed a lot of coordination and gear to get anything done on that
And then
stage.
using those flashbangs, I can't remember the proper term of those, but yeah, and those things cost £100 each.
So I've been kind of out of the loop. Is the difficulty reduction permanent?
Yeah, so for no, so that was actually one of the next questions I was actually going to get into. So to catch up to speed, the event, they lowered the difficulty and they doubled the drop rate. But I'm pretty sure that scores aren't going to be kept during this event. So you have people who have completed the Ultra Blood all the way to wave 10, and they all have scores for doing so. But the scores that you get based on this event will not be recorded, but the rewards will still be the same in a sense of like if you do it for the challenges. So if you beat round 10, you still get the 10 Kafras. If you beat round 9, I believe it was a stack that they gave you. So that still exists. So my question to you guys is, in the past, we've had events like this, like not like this, but we've had events where they've made changes into the game that seemed really good, and then they ended up keeping it and actually implementing into the game. My example of that would be the Raining Enhancements event that we've had before. They, for those that don't know, before we didn't have the chance for enhanced drops to drop, and then we had an event. Mobs had a small chance to drop enhanced items, and then eventually the event was so, I guess, good or favored or went well. I don't know what was the deciding factor, but they decided to permanently keep it into the game, so the event turned into a permanent addition to the game. My question to you guys is, with the current state of Altar of Blood comparison to the previous state, and I know I can especially ask this with some people in this room as well, because Choice, you've done round 10 when it first came out, amongst and that was like that was very few people who did it when it first came out. You're one of. My question to you is, do you think that this change should be a permanent addition into the game? If so, and if not, why?
I think it should be permanent. I mean, the rewards make it worth it, and it's obviously been more popular. I think it could still use like different tweaks to it to make it permanent. Like I think it's a step in the right direction rather than like the full package of this is fine. So I don't know how you guys feel about like the enhanced boss or the enhanced drops, or whether they should just make it so that it's just consistent money, or like how should they do it? That's the best way to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same idea as you, Anfield. I really enjoy, or pardon me, I really enjoy how it currently is, and I would much prefer it be left this way. It's a great, it's a great alternative to grinding that doesn't really feel like grinding, and it kind of allows you to, you still have to actually think about what you're doing when you're grinding, just like a regular grind spot. You know, we're all to the point where it's just pretty brainless. You know, you're not really thinking about anything. You're just kind of autopiloting it. Whereas you could definitely fail by round 10 or round 9 if you're not paying attention. Hell, I've even failed around 5 not paying attention. So I really enjoy that aspect of it.
Mhm.
And then, like, in terms of how they did the difficulty reduction, I would almost like to see that change just slightly, because hey, it seems like they just kind of lowered the HP on the bosses. They kept all the damage there, and then they kind of like they didn't really reduce the amount of mobs. It just seems like just a straight up HP reduction to make it easier. And I think the damage is a little bit crazy because you can get ripped apart at soft cap DP so quickly in Altar of Blood. Like you just get overwhelmed. And it's not even an AP thing. It's just like you just actually need way over soft cap DP in order to participate to 9 and 10. And I don't know if that's intended or not, but I would love to see the difficulty, you know, maybe make the mobs a bit tankier, but make them do less damage. But because right now it's just they're squishy and they just do so much damage.
How much AP are you with Kudum?
I'm 290 Kuda.
Fucking drop that shit, man. There you go. Just capping. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Oh man.
It's weird that the earlier
I'm not.
stages are
I'm not
AP
talking
counts.
like from myself either. Like I'm 290 Kudum, 375 DP. Like it feels
Wow.
fine. Everything feels totally normal, like fine. But when I'm doing it with other players that have 280 AP with their Nuveron and their DP is like 309, they still just get shredded by these mobs, even though they're
Yeah.
more than capable of killing them.
It's like round 5 or round 6 or something like that. You've got like goblins that are just shooting projectiles, but if you get enough of them concentrated on you, it's noticeable damage, that's for sure.
Do you think there's ever going to be a way where they can balance DP as a grinding stat, like make it worthwhile to use DP? Because right now, DP accessories are basically just PvP items. Do you think there's a way they could balance something like Altar of Blood to where it'd actually be worthwhile to have tanky items that you need to swap out to for certain stages or whatever?
I think that's a good
Just have-
idea. I think it had to be very carefully done, and I think if that was the case scenario, my opinion, in short, from what I hear, my first thoughts are, if someone had to do that, maybe it would be for a certain part or point in the round, and it would have to be like, I would think it would be either role specific, or it's just one of those rounds where it's like, okay guys, this is like the DP favored round 11, these mobs are gonna like be super easy to kill, but don't take that for granted. Like they hit like a truck, they CC you super easy, unless you're like, yeah, at this DP or at this damage reduction, or like, maybe this round favors more evasion based or something like that. I don't know exactly how it would look, but I would think it'd be pretty cool if something like that did come into play, where it's like, oh, if you want to make it past round 11, like, yeah, you got to have a DP set for that.
I think you can add monster damage to DP accessories to make them more competitive for grinding
Yeah,
overall.
that's what I was thinking too. Yeah, exactly that same sentiment.
You have to be careful with things like that, especially when it comes to Altar of Blood, because Altar of Blood, part of the challenge is the fact that the mobs can kill you. It's not just, let's see how fast we can kill the mobs can actually kill you. So then if you be like, okay, well, if we make DP accessories competitive with AP accessories in terms of how easily they kill mobs by adding monster damage, well, then they become easily best in slot for something like Altar of Blood, because then you're super tanky and you still do the same damage to the mobs. So that's a really hard thing to balance for something like Altar of Blood. But for general grinding, I'm in favor of DP accessories being made more attractive, maybe by monster damage being added to them. But
maybe that's what we need done to Sherrick and Necropolis. Go on.
Well, one thing I do also think is it would be really interesting for me for Altar of Blood, because one point I was trying to make, but I didn't make it clearly, was that I'm not sure I like the RNG boxes of the enhanced gear. I would actually think instead of having enhanced gear as the RNG thing, I think it would be cool to have unique accessories that are tied only to Altar of Blood, but they're slightly buffed up versions of our current accessories. and then limit Altar Blood a little bit in terms of the time window you can complete it, or maybe a quest related to it, so that let's say you clear Altar Blood and then you have a chance to drop a Tongue-Rad ring, but instead of a normal Tongue-Rad ring that you might expect, it's slightly buffed up in a way. Maybe it adds 1 DP, or something. I don't know. Some weird stuff. So like there's some crazy stuff out there that you can only get.
So in Borderlands, I've been playing a lot of Borderlands 3. I know no one's going to care about this, but in Borderlands, you have like boss gear that you can find, and then you keep farming that gear, and then there's a small chance for gear to get anointed. And anointed, basically, long story short, just adds like extra stats to it on a minimum level. Your suggestion makes me think of, let's say, like, if it had like a weekly repeatable quest, and you complete that quest, you do what you had to do, you go to an NPC, they give you a box or whatever, you open that box, it has a high chance of dropping just a regular accessory, but, you have a chance to maybe get that one accessory that is anointed, if you will, but it's catered like specifically for Altar of Blood. I could see something like that, in my best opinion, being kind of pretty cool, honestly. I'm feeling a lot more rewarding for actively grinding it. I think that the event itself, like, I think that, in my opinion, I would enjoy seeing this as a permanent addition to the game, because I enjoy having our first spec of group content that is competitive with other grinding spots. It's not the most OP thing to do, it's just competitive, and I think that's a really great addition into the game that's needed. Doesn't sound like people are getting too RNG carried, but it would be interesting seeing if there was some sort of reward that like benefited people for spending that time there, and getting people the opportunity to potentially go through things faster, or adding like more survivability. Like, what if there was just that one item that was really good against fighting Latents? You get that one item that's really good for fighting the Latent in round 10. Like, I could totally see that being a thing and not being overdone, because if you have mechanics that are just changing the status within Altar of Blood, I feel like you're not creating a big impact on changing the game and affecting the current state of PvP. So long as those items, let's just say, for example, maybe not the best idea, but those items and those specs added don't have any contribution towards PvP. It's catered just for Altar of Blood. I'd be for that.
I think they will make this permanent.
Choice, how do you feel about the RNG drops on not the consistent Caphras and stuff and the money? How do you specifically feel about the armor drops? Would you prefer something a little bit different, or do you like the enhanced armor drop?
I would probably prefer something different if this is going to be permanent content, because it has only been 2 weeks and there are things that are just sitting on the market now, and it's kind of hard to sell your stuff. Even, Tet Lemuria, Tetakum is just sitting there. And so they definitely are going to have to tweak it. But what I was going to say in like response to Fake's thing about, this being permanent, I think they will. Cacao PA, they kind of have this sly way of calling things events, and they're really just beta testing stuff right on the live servers. And that's the same thing with the Aukman and the spawn rates in the sulfur mines and Pila. That came to live game, and they tweaked it a little bit. So they're pretty much just beta testing us with this event, and I am almost positive that some form of what is currently running in AOB is going to be a permanent thing, and they're probably just like collecting the data right now, and they're going to tweak it and try to make it more worthwhile. And in terms of the difficulty, I'm pretty sure that they want to add more waves, so the difficulty is probably going to stay very similar to this as well.
I think that's a good point. I feel like there's no reason to take it out as well, because as soon as that event gets taken out of the game in the current condition, it's going to be like, hey, remember that one time where Altar of Blood like actually was viable grinding? Man, can't wait for an Altar of Blood. Like, I don't know, it's just one of those things where it's like, it feels like it's wasted content if you're not doing things like this that don't ruin the current economy. Because like, I don't see people constantly coming into my stream being like, oh, you're at Sakraya today, like, why don't you go Altar of Blood? Like, I don't get recommendations like that, but just like people casually asking like, hey, have you been doing Altar of Blood? What do you think? Blah blah blah. What have you gotten? How was it? And it's crazy to hear that you've got 2 pen boxes from it. But even then, even hearing that, to me, knowing that where you're at in the game, what your current goals are, and to get as lucky as getting 2 pen boxes out of it, I still don't think, to me, that still doesn't it doesn't sound like too much. It doesn't sound like, whoa, like hold on, slow down 1 second, because like, you know, we're still gonna have that 1 week where double the drop bosses, or sorry, double the item drop rate for bosses is gonna be happening, and even then, it's like, I think I'd be more jealous if you got like a Vel's Heart over getting like, yeah, another Pen Lemuria, especially with hearing it at that current price. Yeah, it's a lot of silver, but it doesn't sound like, to me, it doesn't sound like too much.
That's why I thought of accessories, because if you're dropping these unique accessories, then they're never going to be something that's ever going to be, oh, that's flooded the market. You know, where if we have enhanced gear, then that's going to flood the market, as Choice has already pointed out. So if we have like these unique accessories that can drop purely from Altar Blood, people get these, they, you know, listen to the marketplace. It's not like that's going to be something that's ever going to be overly listed, I guess. Especially if you have to clear the higher stages for it, which may take a while. Do you think they should add higher stages to Altar Blood, or just
Yes.
add alternate types? I mean, a new 1 through 10.
I don't know. I'd like to see them add higher stages, because like I said, like right now, if they leave the difficulty as it is, I duoed stage 10 with like no problem. The tower had like 45% left, which is like basically second place on the record board if this was not a nerfed event, right? And so if it's going to be that easy, then wave 10 is actually just a joke. And so they need to add something for the higher gear while still leaving wave 10 rewardable, like having decent rewards for, you know, players that are
Being
lower
completely
gear
achievable
players,
while
yeah.
also like implementing new rounds that can give people the motivation to push further.
Yeah, and they still have the opportunity to do that. You know, we're coming out with a new grind spot in Medea that's dropping the Laytons next. You know, we got Star's End, we got Sakraya. Like they have the mobs where, Ash Forest is coming out. I'm imagining Ash Forest will be like a wave 15. And so
Yeah.
they have the mobs in place that they can make those rounds, which is going to be good. But at the same time, you know, allowing players to like
Watch the rounds
actually
go up.
push their gear.
Here's the idea. Watch the rounds go up to 15, and then the next 5 levels of difficulty, you just do Pride, Duo, Tri-Tet, Pen, and it would completely...
Ooh.
I could see that actually being like a cool label for those rounds.
One thing they seriously need to do is make AOB scalable with gear, because right now all the AOB rounds are timed waves. So if you wipe a wave instantly, you still have to wait for that next wave to spawn. And wave 5 is so slow because you have to wait such a long time for these mobs to come out. I really wish that if a wave was wiped, it would just instantly spawn the next wave for you. Because
yeah, I'm for that, but do you think that if you did that,
time.
it would really start to like kind of jank up the feng shui of things? Because right now it sounds like the silver earning potential sounds reasonable. Yeah, definitely sounds like there's going to be some dry spells that, you know, you got to wait through, which sounds tedious. But do you think if that was sped up, that the silver earning potential would go up to a point where Altar Blood would be unquestionably the best thing to do?
They would definitely have to balance around that for sure, but maybe just an option where you can just like have the option at the start of the round. Do you want to try this round on hard mode? And then it would just spawn the waves quicker, and that way there you could get over
normal mode and hard mode
more
options. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and all it would do is just make it faster, but it would make the rewards the same. Because right now it's such a chore to go through wave 5, 6, 7, and 8, and it's just like where there's no challenge, there's nothing to even think about until wave 9 and 10, and it's just kind of like going through this boring motion just to like finally get to those waves that actually matter. And so just for gear scalability's sake, because there's always going to be a point in AOB when there is a capped spawn rate where it's going to be good for this certain gear and it's going to be bad for really high gear, because you're just over clearing, and the only time savings is melting a boss, which, you know, the difference is what, maybe you kill a boss overall the 10 waves, you maybe shave off 5 minutes compared to a 269 Kudum party compared to a 290 Kudum party, right? And so that gear is not really recognized in it's only recognized in ease of clearing the waves, but if you can clear the waves, you're getting the same reward in the same amount of time anyway, right? So it'd be great if there was like a hard mode version that would reward players for doing it faster, like having a more fast-paced round where you get the same rewards, but you're doing it quicker. So overall, you're making more money an hour. It would be great.
Well, it doesn't really reward you for having more gear, because some of the earlier stages are clearly AP capped. Otherwise, we would wipe them much quicker than we do, which is quite frustrating.
I never felt
So
AP capped. I'm not gonna lie, man. The last time that I went into Altar of Blood was 269 Kudum, and then I went into it with 261 or 265 Kudum. And then I went in with 277 last time, and I won't lie, like they're almost every wave I felt like I was grinding faster. It did, but maybe I could stand corrected. Maybe it was a placebo.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I do very similar damage to the higher tier waves to even stage 5. It just feels like they should be one hittable, but they're not getting one hit. You still have to multi hit them, so they're taking damage based on the amount of hits on your skills rather than the actual AP.
Either way, they need to start balancing this game in a way where fun is the top priority.
I completely agree.
Sitting around and waiting for waves of mobs and AOB is not fun. And even if they need to scale back the rewards, that's fine. There's other parts of this game that are the same way, where they're way too timid to update it. Like running scrolls is a good example. Running relics is the most boring thing I've ever done in an MMO, and it's been that way for 3 years. And it's like, oh well, if they take away the scroll at loading animations, it'll be too much money. So what? Then like nerf the rewards if you have to. But no, the point is no one wants to sit around waiting and watching the same animation over and over again. And I think they could be a little bit less cautious when it comes to balancing those things and just making the game fun. Just
You
pick
want
up
your
the
mind to
pace.
feel stimulated in every moment that you're spending time in that.
You just don't want to literally stand around doing nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel like that's too much to ask.
I don't think so. I don't think that's an unrealistic request.
Yeah,
Just
'cause,
limited
like, right
PvE
now-
mechanics. Go ahead, Troy.
Right
sorry.
now in AOB, my static party that I just run with, there's literally times where we'll just have one person take a break until we like reach round 8, and then they come back from like getting food. So we just duo all the way up to 8, and then he comes back. So like we're taking breaks because it's so easy. You can just duo these waves until it like actually gets difficult. And so it's just like the relic thing, exactly like you're talking about, Morland. It's like you're spawning these relics and you're like killing these bosses over and over, and then you finally get to the last boss, you kill it, you get your reward, and then it's like, yay. Well, there's all that unnecessary things you had to do just to get to that point. And I agree that they should focus on fun. They obviously can't break the game by just like letting you just farm relics instantly and stuff like that, but I agree with at least making it where if you're going to scale the rewards down, scale the pace at which you can do them up, because nobody wants to sit around doing nothing. I would rather be doing more for less than doing like less work for like just sitting around boring. You know, like I should never feel bored in an MMO. You know, the game is supposed to be about playing your character and having fun and not sitting around for a stupid animation, right?
Okay. That's quite a bit to digest. If there, aside from the enhancements, the amount of time spent between, let's just say, time gaps in rounds or in between rounds, is there anything that you may add, change, or have a gripe with in terms of Altar of Blood that we didn't get a chance to bring up?
Yes, they should vary where the spawns come from, so it's different each time. Because otherwise,
I
it's the same
so
formulaic.
fucking agree. One of my sorry that you hit a funny note for me. One of my favorite things with experiencing, and I'm going to use Borderlands 3 as an example again. I'm sorry guys, just because I've been playing it a bit recently. One of my favorite things with that is when you die from fighting monsters and doing waves and things and whatnot, because they have game modes that are, I guess, similar to raids in the game. And one of my favorite things is that if you die and start again, it's always different. I think I think procedurally generated is the proper term for the mobs. I know that's for maps and stuff, and excuse my lack of proper words for terms here. But it would be interesting if it was that, because like, yeah, it's like I do enjoy where it's like, okay, be aware of the bombers this round, but not knowing what doorway like certain bombers may come out of kind of just increases like the level of awareness, because there are some rounds where like, yeah, you kind of are just sitting and waiting for shit kind of to happen until like your role specifically like comes into play for something, and you know exactly where they're coming from every single time. I personally myself am all for rounds not being as predictable.
I agree with that. Another gripe that I have is particularly with boss mechanics. They don't seem to care about your frontal guards. They don't care about your super armors.
Fucking
Sometimes they don't
kudo.
even care about your iframes. it would be great if the bosses actually like obeyed the same laws as all other PvE mobs, and actually your frontal guards work, actually your super armors worked. Because specifically Leighton, like that is literally a DP check when he does his lasers. If you don't have a lot of DP, you're going to die. And it would be great if you could actually iframe a laser, if you could actually S block a laser without it stiffening you or knocking you down through it. And so they definitely need to address that with the bosses to make them more competitive.
Yeah, I won't lie. Leighton felt pretty inconsistent.
Yeah, it's definitely very inconsistent. Like it's the strategy for Leighton right now, which is actually something I need to fix, is if you never touch Leighton, you never attack him at all, he will never target you. So you can have somebody sit off to the side and have two people fight him. And if those two people die, you can have that third person walk up to the bodies,
nonchalantly and res them.
Away.
Really?
Right. So you can do that. And so that's the way you remove the RNG factor of Leighton and guarantee the wave 10 is by doing that. So that needs to be fixed. But they need to fix Leighton's fight in general, because I shouldn't feel at risk that I'm going to die from lasers when I'm literally watching him shoot the laser and it's knocking me through my frontal guard,
Yeah, one of my most unfavorite moments with Ultra Blood was completely dodging the laser, seeing the animation go off, being a good dash length away from where it landed, and then like I would say a couple to a few seconds later dying to the laser. And it was just like, I think it was a server thing, but even then, like, I kind of agree. I would through that experience, I would enjoy having something that just, I guess, felt more consistent. And even with you mentioning the targeting of the boss on even it getting aggroed, it would make more sense if one person touches the Leighton, then everybody's at risk,
How do I fix
yeah,
my
and I
game
think
call?
another
Hold on,
thing too is if
push it.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. No, sorry. No, just something came. Oh, that was weird. Okay, never mind. Sorry. So I had a host,
Okay.
or sorry, I had a stream in the background, and then someone hosted the person, and then their stream volume just kind of overpowered everyone there. My apologies.
Okay, no problem. So yeah, I was gonna say too, if they don't make Kudum on Wave 10 permanent content, right now it makes sense how the wave kind of lines up, where you damage Kudum and you kill the mobs while Leighton stays dormant. But if they don't leave Kudum as a potential to get a drop, I'd really like to see them either do one of two things on Wave 10. Either make it so Leighton instantly aggroes when it spawns and we have to fight mobs and Leighton, or just reduce those waves down on the end of Wave 10, where the waves of mobs just come at you endlessly until finally they run out, and then you finally get to fight Leighton. Because right now it just feels like it's such a waste of time once again, where you're just farming these Tatukas and these snakes, and nobody's really going to wipe on that phase, because you kind of are able to ration when you want to pull the mobs. And so I'd love to see that addressed. Just there's a lot of quality of life stuff that they just need to fix with it to make it less of a chore during some of these waves.
And a lot more sound. I get what you're saying. I'm going to leave you guys with an opportunity to bring up anything else around Ultra Blood, or maybe any other questions that you may have thought of and haven't gotten a chance to ask. Is there anything else around the Ultra Blood that you guys would like to potentially bring up? Any suggestions? Any questions of experience? I'm going to take that as a no.
I would love to see a checkpoint on Wave 10. I'm sure that's going to come in the future, but having to start at Wave 5 every time, it would be cool if there was a Wave 10 checkpoint when they add future waves, but maybe not right now. Yeah, you got to pay pearls for that, or pay memory frags, right?
Yeah, memory frags, but yeah, I mean, there's a checkpoint.
It would be cool if there was like a 100 energy checkpoint on Wave 10 where you could just start it up. Because if they had more waves to like 15, I could not imagine having to start from 5 all the way to 15 every single time, unless I wanted to pay nightmare frags.
Well, you start from Wave 5 anyway, because you want to farm the all the boxes, I guess, and wave 5 is where you start to be able to get boss gear, I think, at try or higher.
I think it's 6, but yeah, I get what you mean. But for like the future, right? Well, let's say that there's 10 to 15, so they add that content. it would be probably in most teams' best interest to start at wave 10 to 15 if they can easily clear it, right? Or like reasonably clear it, because you do have better chances as the waves get higher and higher per pouch, right? So I'm just saying for the future, it would be nice to not have to start at those like monotonous waves.
Okay. So let's move on to a different topic here. I want to step into the merc system of the game. I feel like there's going to be quite a few opinions in regards to this. So moving forward, guilds are a big piece of BDO. Now moving into the current condition of the game, mercs are also now a big part of this game. In short, what are your guys' current thoughts on the merc system in its current condition?
Well, for EU, it's really bad right now. It's being abused, and people feel like they don't need to commit to siege guilds because instead they can just merc whenever they want. And so most guilds end up full of mercs, and so our siege scene is not in a great state because of that. So obviously, the consensus generally around EU guilds and players, especially after podcasts, is that the merc system needs to be reined in quite a lot. Lots of suggestions been floating around, including obviously the most obvious, which is just like limiting the amount of mercs. But something does need to be done about it because it's such a weird thing to. I'm sorry. There's just like a wagon on my screen going through the desert, and I've never. Okay, it's very confusing. Yeah. So anyway, it's just at the moment it's obviously ruining the siege scene in many ways for EU. So I think a lot of EU players would like to see it at the very least limited, the same way it is in Node Wars, where obviously you can't have unlimited mercs in Node Wars. Instead, you're limited depending on the tier. So people would like to see it limited in Siege. Perhaps another system is rather than because currently right now, I guess even if you limited it, you could still have the potential to have quite a lot of strong mercs in a guild. Even if it was just 10, you could have 10 really, really strong players that merked out to your guild every week. So I guess maybe you could limit it in a sense where if you merc for one guild 1 week, you're barred for a little bit before you can merc for that same guild again, so that you have to spread the power around a bit. But yeah, I don't know how it is specifically on NA, but on EU, it's kind of a big problem. So.
Yeah, my thoughts on the merc system as well is that it definitely should be limited for Siege, and I'm almost of the opinion that it should be. I think it should be limited to like 5 players. I think 10 might even be too much.
I think 10 is too much, to be honest.
Yeah, 10 does seem like a lot. And, pardon me.
Because right now you can have as many as you want, right?
Yes. Yeah, for Siege, literally. Yeah, as many as you want. I think the whole reason that the merc system came to be is you can't guarantee that your full 100 people are going to be there for a siege. And I thought I thought they put it there as a way to kind of assist people in, putting yourself on vacation if you can't be there 1 week, where you can just fill your slot with a merc. Great. Well, that's definitely not what's happening right now. There are guilds that are super strong 1 week and not very strong the next, just because of the amount of mercs that they can bring in. And it's very obvious when a merc guild wins, a territory, and now they don't have those mercs because they can't merc when you're in a castle. And it's very obvious, like, the difference in strength. And so I think 5 players.
Oh, that's right. I didn't realize you can't hire mercs when you have the castle.
Yeah, you can. So I feel like 5 is enough to like give you a little bit of room if 5 people are not able to attend Siege that week, where you're not gonna like cause your guild to have a humongous difference in power because of those 5 people. Like 5 people can make a big difference, but it's a reasonable enough number where you can, have a friend merc for your guild, or have a few friends merc for your guild, or replace a few members that are AFK that week, and not completely sway the power of your guild in a big way.
I think they should bring back that feature where mercs can rip your structures up. That was dumb.
The spies.
feature. I think the Merc system has some benefits in the sense that it does allow you to supplement if you're having a bad week, where you can just still compete with the rest of the people. Or also, I like the idea that you can use the Merc system to trial people out in node wars and sieges that are interested in joining your guild. So I think that it does have benefits to it, but at the moment it's just being abused.
It should definitely. I agree that I definitely think it should be limited. I don't. Which leads into my next question. I'll leave my answers short. I definitely think that it should be limited. My question to you guys is: do you think that it takes away from guild identity?
Well,
Certain guild is known for being powerful, strong, weak, whatever. Now this guild's just getting as many mercs as they want.
yeah, I mean, specifically, it's hurted EU because some guilds have just gone under because the competition is fighting, mark stacked guilds, and they just don't want to put up with it anymore. In general, which was also part of a greater issue that was happening with the game anyway, because people were less interested in siege in EU as time went on, especially after 2018 reworks to a lot of classes, made it less fun to siege on those classes. So the merc system just sort of exaggerated those issues that already existed with guilds wanting to do their own thing, because it's hard to run a guild. I mean, there's still issues where a guild leader needs to do so much for the guild, needs to be on to command to gather and other things like that are like archaic in terms of how they function. So it's a lot of work to run a guild, and you have to have a committed leader. And I guess it sucks to be a leader where you put a lot of work into guild, you recruit and you build up your player base, and then you just get rolled over by some uber strong mercs stacked in a guild that would usually be on a tier 1 node,
That don't even give a care about the label, brand, logo, group.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that does mean
I
a lot
also
to some
think
people.
that guild. Yeah, I also think that guild identity is lost pretty hardcore with the Merc system, because I think that there is at least 2 to 3 guilds on NA that would probably end up forming up and being a siege guild if the Merc system didn't exist anymore. Because right now, being in a tier 2 guild is a pretty sweet gig. You can stomp noobs on tier 2s all week, and then you can go and pick whatever fight you want the following week in a siege, or the same week in a siege. And so why would you join a guild where, 1 week you might have a stale fight, the other week you might have a good fight? Like, you can basically choose where you want to go, so you can therefore always get a good fight. And so I personally think that a lot of players do that because, like, why wouldn't they? They can just merc out. Whereas if there was no merc system, I think a lot more guilds would start forming up, because now they can, they can't find those fights, or they can't like merc out to that guild anymore, and they'll just form up a guild so that they can continuously participate in siege on a week by week basis. And so bringing it down to 5 people instead of completely obliterating it, I think would actually cause a guild or two to pop up. And I think that on EU, it sounds like it's way worse with the merc system, and you might have, 3 or 4 guilds that actually pop up.
Yeah, the merc system is essentially LFR. There's no commitment. You just run in and do it, and there's no commitment or effort that you put into forming a guild that would actually require work and coordination to be in. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what else there is to really even touch upon, because it just is quite a general consensus. I don't think there's an argument against, I'm not sure there are people. I mean, maybe there are that are like going to sit here and say that it's great that we can have guilds that can put all their members on vacation and have 90 mercs. But it's just
That's a small percent. Yeah, right.
It doesn't need to be scrapped, but it does need to be limited for sure.
I definitely agree, because I think the overall importance of them, I think, based on what I'm seeing, I think the initial reason for the merc system was to fill those gaps and make sure that people who wanted to be full and have that roster full on that day, they could have exactly that. But now it just seems like, again, there really just is no cap.
Did they scrap the whole territory war thing? Like, I thought Siege was going away soon. Does that not happen? No. Not deleting Medaya Castle?
Yeah, they scrapped that.
Wow.
And the merc system was actually supposed to replace the militia system. It wasn't specifically for the filling of the gaps sort of thing. It was an alternate to the militia system, because people complained about militia where people would stack onto a defensive side because it was far more fun to be defensive militia than offensive militia. And so the merc system was supposed to solve that because mercs can't join the defending guilds. So, and also, they can't overstack a guild. So, for example, you can't have like 110 mercs in a guild. You can still only have 100 members in a guild. Whereas with the offensive militia, you could bring a 100-man guild and then bring mercs, which were essentially the offensive militia helping you. So to avoid that issue as well, they did this. So that's what we got instead of that system. It is technically a better system in many ways, but it still doesn't make it right, So, but yeah, Territory War was scrapped. They said they put a lot of work into it, and then they decided they didn't want to do it. So,
Just like dancing.
they do that with a lot of things. They start working on projects and they announce big things, and then like for example, do you remember when climbing was going to be a thing? I mean,
Oh,
it's
I
not like a
remember.
big project, but like it's still one of those things that just they're like, nah.
I still remember all the artwork for it.
These airships have been in the game for how long, and what have we done with that? They seem to like half work on things and then just be like, I don't really feel like doing that anymore. I don't know if different teams swap around or something, or what happens that they just keep abandoning things.
What probably happens
Oh,
is
sorry,
they're
what was
like,
it?
yo, dude, look how much money we made on mobile this week. Yo, but dude, we're supposed to be putting climbing in the PC. No, fuck that. Fuck battle arena, more custom, fucking look how much shit we can put into mobile. Literally 10% gain. That's like all a PC, man.
So like Soviet Pearl Abyss or something?
So do you feel that the compensation for the merc system is good, fair, could be better? Because I'm not gonna lie, looking at the compensation in terms of like, if you're mercing with someone, if you do a good job, if you win, I'm not gonna lie, 20 mil is just seems like not a lot. But my opinion in short is, I don't know what the correct fix for the compensation could be, but I definitely don't think that the compensation for being a merc feels that great. And if you're going to merc, you're going for a fight. It would be sweet if compensation for your efforts were there. I think it'd be interesting seeing if the compensation for your role played could cater towards also how you perform. Like if you got, but again, I don't know how you'd go about that because your role could be different every single time. But majority of case scenarios is I don't know too many mercs that are getting hired as mercs that are getting thrown on the defensive squad, because majority of times that I see anyone merking, they're usually they're not on the flex team, but they're definitely with the ball, the main ball. So it'd be interesting seeing if there was some sort of compensation that catered around overall performance, potentially how you did as well. Your guys' thoughts and opinions.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think already the compensation is more than enough, if not even too high. Maybe there should be no compensation. The thing is, like, this is another thing. If you add more compensation, then it makes it more worth it to be a merc rather than join the actual guild where you can get more rewards
Good point.
for the fighting and the rewards. So if you start giving mercs compensation, then they're even more in a position where it's better to be a merc rather than commit to the siege guild itself. So
I would say right now that's almost the case. If you win 7 nodes, like you work 7 times in a week, that's 210 mil. That's more than my guild payout even when we get a castle. So like right now it's better to merc out 7 days a week than go to war in my own guild 7 days a week.
Yeah, I think it definitely is not something that needs to be buffed, because you run the risk of like it already being an issue where it's like better to be a merc, arguably more fun where you can just go and pub stomp during the week on nodes and come and join a siege guild of whatever you choose, and then you're still gonna get paid, So I definitely don't think it should be they should be rewarded or compensated any higher. In fact, I think actually they should get no money, and the guild bank should still be reduced. So maybe the merc system revamped so that you have to sign up through an NPC, and guilds that want mercs can select their 5 mercs a week, and they can pay an NPC of which people have signed up for, and those people can merc, and then assuming that those people show up and are checked in terms of how they've actually participated in the siege, then the money will still come out of the guild bank, but it'll go towards the game where it'll just be lost essentially, so that the mercs don't get paid. If you're merking, you're pretty much going for the fight anyways, but if you're also getting compensated, it's already too much in my opinion. You should be going for the fight and or trialing for a guild. Those are the only two reasons you're a merc, I know. You can get Stormtrooper too, which is a little silly actually. I think that should be limited to only players that are in the siege as well. I think that's part of the reason people do it, especially they go on Balanos and Serendia, is they can farm Stormtrooper super easy on their dooms.
So
yeah, I just think in general, like
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the identity of that merc system was just completely lost. I think the idea was there, but just like anything in BDO, it's going to be abused when you don't have the right checks and balances in order. And while the original intention was to replace players that weren't going to make it that siege or trial out another player, that's really not what ended up happening at the end of the day. So it just needs to be reassessed and redone.
A lot of food for thought here. So what would, if there was anything that you could additionally change or improve, is there anything else that comes to the top of your head that you could change or improve based on some of the things mentioning and not including some of the previous ideas you guys have already suggested? Is there anything else that maybe potentially comes to mind that we didn't get a chance to maybe necessarily bring up in the right way?
You mean pertaining to the merc system?
Pertaining to the merc system, correct. We've talked about limiting. I brought up the idea of different compensation. We talked about the identity and if it changes, how guilds may be perceived. We've talked about Morrolan's made a joke about structures. Though I do think it's a good idea. Is there anything additionally that you think that you could contribute on top of some of the things where you think that some attention might be needed? Take that as a no. So, in conclusion, do you guys think that the merc system overall, in short, has been a positive impact for the Node Warden siege scene?
You know, it's got its benefits in some aspects, but, you know, people are going to take things over the top just as they do everything. So, you know, we just need to limit those guilds that are taking it over the top. And I think that the merc system overall is a good idea. I think it's definitely better than what we used to have with the defending and the attacking squads in sieges. I think that was a joke that eventually just kind of fizzled out. And I'm glad that we have a system that's, you know, utilized, and I enjoy merking for node wars and stuff like that. But I also understand that, you know, there's a responsibility as PA and Cacao to moderate the guilds that are like abusing that. And, you know, it can kill an entire siege scene. Like, it's almost killed EUs, right? So definitely needs to be addressed sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think that it's as it is in the current state of the game. I think that it's a negative thing in Siege, but a positive thing in Node Wars. But I think that it could be a really good thing in both.
See, I agree too, and I think that Siege a much more important time as well. It really should be your whole guild. Like, you really shouldn't have a reason to be hiring mercs even for Siege, unless it's just your slot of 5. Because I feel like it's just much more guild commitment from your mates, rather than that empty fill of someone who's temporarily there, cool to have them, and then throughout the rest of the week, it's going back and focusing on, you know, the group that matters, that bonds and keeps that that name whole, if you will. Okay, let's take a gander here. The next topic that I have written, I think it's a big chunk. I'm gonna save that for next week, but let me jump into one question we haven't brought up. So, in the relation to Altar of Blood and talking about some of the changes, if the events being brought to us should be a permanent addition, do you think there should be a version of Altar of Blood that can cater to guilds? For example, rounds can have mobs that require a higher number of people. forming more of a strategy for potential shot callers and potential roles to be filled. We discussed the idea, the idea of, maybe some rounds can cater to DP, bringing DP back, fooling with that idea. Do you think there should be, we discussed the idea of normal and hard mode kind of briefly. It was suggested, but in relation to all that, do you think there should be something that caters to a higher number of people for a higher level of involvement pertaining around Altar of Blood?
I think the natural thing to do with Altar of Blood is to adjust it for guilds to use it. I think it makes sense to do it. If it's done right, it could be really, really fun for guilds to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds incredible to me. They would definitely have to make sure that they scale that properly, because there is a wide range of guilds out there, from lower end tier 1 guilds all the way up to siege tier guilds, and you can't really slot those into 3 different types of things like we have right now, which is like easy, medium, hard. It's it's going to be too easy when you have a high end guild that's going for the hard, and it's going to be too hard for some of the guilds that want to do easy. And so if they scale it in a proper way based on looking at the average gear score of the group that's gone in, the number of players that's gone into that particular instance, and then they scale it based on the players in that instance when they start it up, then I think that would be a lot more fun content, rather than something that, a lot of guilds are just going to blow right through. But, testing on that kind of stuff is pretty difficult to do, because think about it from the perspective of PA. That's a lot of people to do quality testing for a game mode that requires maybe up to 100 people in there, at varying levels of gear. So I definitely think they're going to have to maybe do some beta testing, and before they release that on maybe the test server, and allow like a lot of players to actually try that out beforehand, so that they can actually like get it right. But I think it sounds like a lot of fun if they can do that.
I also think it would be really cool if you can't be instance teleported in. You have to be at the physical location to then go through what would be the equivalent of like an Aukman or History type portal for all the guilds. So the guild has to fully gather there. First, that would be a really cool sight, and then it could also
Not
lead
gonna
to some
lie,
PvP
I think
before
that the original version even of Altar of Blood in its current condition should be like that. I think that there shouldn't be an instance for it, though. I think it's convenient. I do think it would be more meaningful to have to travel all the way to Altar of Blood and then meet your homies there, and then if you need more supplies, it's like leaving Altar of Blood, storage mating some stuff, or going right back to town to go get it. Because I mean, the distance traveled for Calphian and going into Altar of Blood isn't really that bad. But then again, like, I'm also okay with the instance. I think it would be cooler of having to have a roundup point and meetup point. I think the travel in the long run may be more meaningful, but that's just my food for thought to contribute to that. Sorry.
I think the idea of seeing large guild raids forming up to do Altar of Blood is cool. And also, if you have to form up outside the entrance ready to do it, then it could lead to some GVG action, which I think is cool. Because right now, the only place GVG happens sometimes is on some grind spots. Well, this is just a glorified version of that, right? You have to have guilds form up to come to Altar of Blood, and then that could lead to GVGs as guilds try to fight over the area. So, yeah.
Well, there was a brief moment where guilds started to compete for kill times on guild bosses, like back when Kama was new. But then, I don't know, all the strats just kind of became really cheesy and people kind of just stopped caring about it. But if there was a mode like that that was actually rewarding, and then they also attached some kind of leaderboard to it as well, I think that could provide a ton of content.
One general theme I think that we've been talking about a lot on this podcast over the last several weeks is just wanting more content that you do with your homies, that you do with your guild, instead of focusing on this solo player aspect in this MMO, which is supposed to be a massive multiplayer online game. Just having more of that multiplayer in the game would be incredible. And I really hope that they focus on that, because at the end of the day, that's what makes MMOs successful, is being able to do content with your friends and, make those relationships with people and get on Discord. And, some of my fondest moments on BDO is not when I'm, grinding Histria and I get an Elton piece. It's not when I'm grinding Stars End and I get a earring. It's not when I, it's the memories and the moments that I share with the other people in this game. And if they can double down on that and add in a whole bunch of content that includes stuff like that, where you're playing with other players, it's just going to increase the attractiveness and longevity of this game by a long shot.
I mean, even just having this conversation with you guys on a weekly basis has been very refreshing. I can definitely I definitely agree with you there, because some of my favorite moments are moments that I've had in game, and I like to make videos and stuff like that, and really enjoy sharing those moments with people. But it means a lot more if I get to experience them with people. Like, some of my favorite moments, man, was like pushing a wheelbarrow from Calfian to Erhaza. So dumb, but there were so many people that like showed up for the joke of it, and just brought sheep and did other little things, and I was PA'd through the desert and healed with a shy through the desert. As ridiculous as it sounds, it's like, I don't think I'm ever gonna forget those little quirky moments, and I can only imagine as more hype things happen in gaming, you get to share those with your friends. Like, I can't imagine like getting a pen Lemuria box again and being able to share that with your homies, because that's like, those are super exciting moments. And I think that having it and sharing those moments with people that you also value being with, I think it's just more fuel for that special feeling.
I think there's lots of things they can do in terms of group PVE that, I just worry that they're just generally too lazy to do it. I mean, there's even stuff they can do with like life skills to make that more interactive. Allow like certain new tradable items that can be traded once to a new character, so that you can like craft things, like cool little items you can craft for your friends if you're good at a life skill or something. I don't think they need to fully limit everything that can be traded as well. Like, I mean, definitely, like, I understand why they do the way that they do it. It's to prevent real money trading and stuff, but that stuff happens anyway. So I think there's a little bit more they can open up about things like that you can help your homies with, because it is far too single player in everything that's not end game PvP, and that's even becoming more reduced as people go to small scale guilds instead of large scale communities. So
I kind of wish they had stuff like that. We do have a trade system. It's very, very limited. It would be nice if you could trade like blue and green grade gear up to maybe, I don't know, try to another player, and it becomes bound to that player. Because, there's a lot of times where I have a friend and they're like, yo, I want to start playing BDO. And, you tell them about the game, tell them how, it's kind of tough starting out. It would be great if I could just load them up with full tri blue gear. It's not a big deal to me, but it's a humongous monumental thing for them to feel like they can actually go and grind the locations that, just accelerates past that really tedious part of the game straight to like where you want to be. You can actually PvP with other players at okay capacity at those grind spots that you're supposed to be at. You can actually grind a bunch of different locations, and helping those players out get started. They're going to feel like, wow, I've got this big boost. The choice really helped me out, or Anfield really helped me out. And now I feel like, I'm more invested in this game because of that. That would be great. I'd really like that.
Well, let's put this down, and we'll revisit some of these topics again next week. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. I hope you guys had a good time. This hour went by very quickly. Very, very quickly. I feel like this is a good conversation to have. I hope you guys felt that way too. Next week, I want to go more into talking about what it means to be a creator in the directory, in the game in general, talking about some things around BDO partnership, and then potentially revisiting some other ideas of group and guild and solo content as well. Find out more about that next week. Again, big thank you to Anfield and Choice and Morroland for joining me today. If you guys haven't taken the time to give these guys a follow, make sure that you guys do. Yes, Anfield, you could have just said that, man. Next week is going to be... I know, it's cool. Next week is going to be Manos as well. We're probably going to revisit some of that as well. Believe me, like, some of these topics are still like also being prepared, but to give you guys a scope and idea on some of the upcoming things in the future, maybe it won't be next week, maybe it'll be the following week after. These are some of the things that I have in mind for preparation, but find out what happens all next week, next time. But make sure, please, give everyone a follow here. All the social links will be included in the description down below for the video. Hopefully the audio of this video, once done and is uploaded and published, was much better. And yeah, as far as that goes, guys, I'm going to leave this with a chance for you guys to maybe shout out anything that's going on or any events that you guys have going on. Do you guys have anything special coming up in the next week that we can look forward to seeing from you guys?
I'm doing a 24-hour stream on Saturday.
24-hour stream Saturday, Anfield stream. Give my boy a follow. Links in the description down below. Choice, what you got going on?
I'm going to be watching a 24-hour stream that Anfield's doing on Saturday.
Hell yeah. Well, I hope everyone I hope everyone takes the time to come kick it. Morrolan, what you got going on?
I will be emptying my bank account on Wednesday, trying to get some Monos clothes, so that'll be fun. I'm already liquidating like massive months worth of stockpile of random shit just so I can spend it.
This is going to be interesting hearing some of your foods for thought coming up in the next couple weeks as well then, man. I'm going to be looking forward to having this conversation. As far as that goes, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys next week.